Hangout is live and on the air. And it is working. So there we go. And there's Brian's ugly face. It is working. So there we go. And that's Brian's ugly face. Never a dull moment with YouTubers.
Yeah.
Never a dull moment with YouTubers.
Yeah.
Never a dull moment. I can hear that echo. Echo in the Bunny Man. All right.
Woohoo!
Okay, so we are recording. So I apologize for the 3-minute delay there, everybody. But Thomas, if you want to pick up where you left off, we're not touching this lift with a 10-foot pole. What are we looking at today? Oh, pot stock.
Yeah.
More stinky.
No, I was just scrolling through some names I've been watching. I think pot stocks are starting to break down. I like retests of bottom of ranges. Kind of think about what we would learn or how we would play altcoins. I think this is very similar space right now, that this is all taken off very quickly. And if you just scroll out, you really need to focus on the bottom ends of these ranges here, especially on names like Tilray. I mean, look at how this thing just went exponential. We're kind of consolidating around, 88.6 to 78.6, but look at this weakness here. I really don't think that this thing will rally in the face of this sideways consolidation, which is breaking down here. So I like buying this thing in the $20 to $30 range. You can see there's some gaps at $40 and down below. I just think that's what needs to happen. We saw earnings coming out worse than expected on Cron. This industry is just a little too young, got a little too excited too quickly. Maybe just needs to simmer down a bit. But that's, you caught me a little off guard on the pot stock commentary. I was just kind of scrolling through names. But as far as broader market plays, again, if we don't get the first 15 minutes of what we talked about at the beginning of the show, I think it's important for everyone to understand that we are going to the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter. And I'm just waiting for the sort of Ides of March scenario to play out. I know that was at the middle of the month, but I want to give it until the end to see if we do get the pullback, which leads to a buying opportunity, which eventually yields the melt up scenario into maybe, I don't know, May to September areas or whatever that needs to be at. But I think that markets are waiting for that to take direction. I think that, interestingly, the markets are still trying to digest the Fed's dovish pivot. Is this good for the market? Is this bad for the market? The jury's still out there, and there's a Macro Voices podcast that I need to listen to from yesterday where they brought my girlfriend, Juliet de Klerk, back on the show as like an extra at the end. So I'm sure she's going to sound off on what she interprets that
Buy
market
the euro.
as.
Buy the euro.
Yeah, she may go up and, the euro's cheap, which I don't know. If you look at, let's look at the dollar quickly. I think there's two camps here on this. There's the bullish scenario that I think Brian and I are looking at, where the dollar just runs away. And people were kind of thinking, well, if the Fed went dovish, and they start cutting rates, that's not really bullish for the dollar. But I think the idea that it's the shiniest turd on the block and no one has any other viable alternative to pile into, that's the real reason why this thing's going to rally. I think the other reasoning for that is not strong enough. So, here you can look at the dollar. This looks like either a head and shoulder scenario, kind of looking at here's your left shoulder down to here, up to here, and then you've got your head that's poked up to about 97 3/4, and then your right shoulder, which is down here. And if this thing is really ready to form that right shoulder, we should top out right here, and it's the perfect spot for it to top out. but do we have any real reasons for a pullback? And I'd argue that the underlying indicators just aren't there. I don't think the fundamentals are there, but I'm happy to adjust my view depending on how the market digests and further understands this Fed pivot, because it still seems like the jury's out, and that's very unlikely.
I mean, I see stock markets. We kind of talked about this yesterday. Our trend indicator says that stock markets are actually feeling bullish again. There's no way in hell the Fed's going to cut interest rates with stock markets this close to their highs. I can't see it. There's no way.
No, it's an interesting commentary, because I don't know if you ever use Euro-dollar futures to see what they're going to be pricing in cuts here. But if you take the June contract for this year and compare that to the June contract of 2020, they're actually pricing in almost a half-point rate cut. Well, right now it's almost a quarter point, but at one point it was close to a half point. So, I mean, that's into next year, of course. So that's not coming up in the next Fed meeting, but it is interesting that these markets are looking for the Fed.
Actually, you know what? That's a good point, though. Let's, for fun, let's go and look at the term structure. That's not a bad commentary. The issue here is, where are we here? Euro dollars. There you are. Keep in mind too, Euro dollars is a proxy on the corporate interest rate market. So we have to be careful there. So 97.42, basically 2.5%. And as we go out the term structure, prices are actually rising. So that's actually what should happen. Yeah, like you said, so September 2020, so that's about a year out. They are discounting. So in essence, I mean, we have to remember that the term structure ideally wants to be in contango. And it's actually funny because I just recorded this new automated program for the level 2 program. So I went into great detail about the term structure here. So I don't know whether we can read too much into that, because in essence, this is actually what they call contango, and this is what's supposed to happen. So if anything, what I see on your chart is Mr. Bollinger has just probably is telling his people volatility is extremely wide here. Be very careful about taking a trade. We could be all over the place. But, you know, excellent commentary on your part. Oh, Jesus. Did the YouTube page crash again? Oh, no.
No, it should be good.
All right. Geez, YouTube's giving us some curveballs. So, yeah, good point. And, Thomas, I think that's a really good point. You know, I think it's a really good idea just to follow the Fed funds and the Euro-dollar futures. And as we've sort of talked about for quite a while, the TED spread, I think you can make the argument that the Fed, at the very least, I don't see the case for them cutting rates. I think that they brought the market back to quote unquote normalized. And what I just noticed while I was going through my screen this morning is it looks like China's trying to resolve bullishly here. So, you know, if China goes back into face rip mode up, you know, trade talk kind of stuff, again, that's going to relieve a lot of that sort of international concern. And if anything, what I'm hearing is they're going to download a lot of the blame on this economic slowdown, on this Brexit nonsense, and it just keeps going and going and going. But I think you make a good point here, sir. I appreciate that the spread on these is suggesting that the market is looking for lower rates going forward, not higher. So good point.
Thanks. I mean, I really think that this just goes along with the, let's call it the discomfort with what's going on here between Powell's commentary and, you know, how people are interpreting what he's looking at. And I think that the underlying markets are still very weak. And if you look at the underlying econs, the fundamentals just they really scare a lot of these analysts, and I think that's why they're pricing this in. There may be there are other functions at work here, but nonetheless, the point is that this isn't happening tomorrow, probably not happening at the next Fed meeting. But remember, they changed their dot plot, and they're looking for one rate hike before by 2020. But at this point, the problem is the credibility of the Fed chairman and how people can take what he says seriously after he's pivoted so aggressively in the opposite direction that people are going a little schizophrenic.
Yeah, and hopefully he's learned a really valuable lesson that Fed governor, their job is actually to try and say as little as possible. And I think, he took the job and he's like, okay, I'm the man, right? And the market's going to do what I say it's going to do, right? And we got to, get back to good, sound economic policy. And the Fed's got wiggle room to lower rates if the market craps out, which is why I think they were raising short-term interest rates anyway. But, I noticed here, like on the stock market, I mean, geez, we're only like 5% away from new all-time highs. I cannot see the Fed lowering interest rates in the face of that. That's just Brian chatter.
Yeah, totally agree, but it's crazy.
And I'd also say, too, I thought it was really interesting. Marat this morning in the lounge was pointing this out. If you look at this chart, what letters of the alphabet do you see? I mean, me personally, I see M's up here, and I see W's down here. I see an attempt to break the market in an M here, and then a W right after, and then a W within a W. And now with this move up through here, this carves out a massive W. So, and I think Marat in the lounge was pointing out that we could potentially have like bullish bots set up here, taking us to higher prices. So, I also think too, super, super valuable information that, we reviewed yesterday. I think it's in Wall Street's best interest to keep the damn market on, just nice and parked right here into the options expiry today. So, I definitely don't think it's a good idea for us. And also, too, we talked about window dressing. I don't think it's a good idea for anybody to like put on a new trade here. But, Monday, Tuesday, especially Tuesday morning, Tuesday, Wednesday, London kill zones, all that kind of talk. We should watch to see how this thing pivots. And, this is just purely Brian's opinion. Remember we were talking yesterday, guys, about Boeing and how we kind of thought that Boeing need to move higher. And I heard the news overnight was that now the scuttlebutt, and this will go back and forth and back and forth. But the scuttlebutt now is that, it turns out it's not a Boeing issue. It's actually an issue with, and I don't know what the issue is now, but all I saw in the headlines was you can't blame Boeing for these plane crashes. So if that's the case, you guys can see, Boeing's a huge component in the Dow. And like we talked about yesterday, Julian's going to be hunting for that gap fill. Brian, he's definitely going to be looking for Mr. Mountain Man and reload zones to be tested. This could translate into a very, very big rally in the stock market. So be cognizant of that, people. I definitely think that this thing, now you can see it's pointing up. And all it needed was a little bit of good news, and it could break here. So it looks like that's what's happening. So. And now I'm hearing that Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin, and I think that this is a completely manufactured event here, but I think they're going to try and muster up some USA and Russia Cold War kind of, stuff over Venezuela now. Because the Russians have moved a whole bunch of troops into Venezuela. And the Americans, Mr. Trump, trying to point out that he's not in love with Russia and he's not a puppet of them. He said that he's going to be turning up the heat on Russia over Venezuela. Oh boy! So never a dull moment in this space, that's for sure, eh? Anyway, totally derailed you there. I'm sorry, sir, but I thought it was just interesting to point out that Boeing is trying to move higher here.
Yeah, I mean, I see in the short term potential move higher, but I think that a lot of a lot of countries that had their orders for these airplanes, they're in trouble here still from a pricing standpoint. I think that China, I may have the country wrong, but they've canceled a couple of their 787 orders
Yeah.
and some of their 737 Maxes as well. But either way, I mean, it might be a technical play, but long term, maybe a couple months out, I'm a little more worried about this. But that's just my commentary. What I do want to talk about is the breakdown in gold that happened yesterday. This was, oh man, why does this thing not save my fibs ever? All right, so we had the high at about 1250, call it. There it goes, just a little slow on the uptake. But we rallied back up to about
FYI, Thomas, people on YouTube are reporting that there is some background noise. I don't know whether your
yeah, that's my extra great microphone that's picking up people in the background here. So I apologize for that.
Just an FYI.
Well, if they can't hear
so what's I'd be curious to think what number one, what's your sort of technical view of gold, and then number two, what's sort of your client base? Are they still raw gold and silver and all that?
No, it depends who you ask. There's a lot of mixed messages out there. From where I sit and what I'm seeing, technically speaking, I think this was a very serious rejection of the 1320. This was kind of the area that gold really needed to break above for us to sort of come about with our bullish narrative. And that's just not playing out right now. And that's a direct consequence of the US dollar strength. I like gold coming down here. I think yesterday's weakness was a big sign of a sell-off. You know, even just if you want to look at this from a technical perspective, from how you would trade how I would trade this short, this was just a perfect neckline tag of our market structure top, came back up, rejected. That's classic bear to me. This thing probably needs to come down and at least test that 1275 area. And then ABCD ideas down into 1260. I think anything under 1260 is really dangerous for gold. And that could mean that we test the bottom of this range. But I'm not there yet. I think we just need to kind of do a mountain man to 50% recheck and then reevaluate what the dollar looks like, what the econs look like, and go from there. But I'm sitting in I still have my SLV puts that expire in April, $14.50 puts. Those are still doing quite well. You can see here, that's an interesting Bollinger Band tag. This hasn't quite opened up the way I'd like to see it, but I'm really hunting for moves down into this range, maybe a gap fill if you look at the left here. Is it too late to be buying those? Yeah, I mean, again, I'm looking at April expiration, so I didn't even buy myself 6 months at a time with an SOF. This was just this is like my bread and butter wheelhouse trades. Whenever I get these, they come in maybe 3 times a year, and I'll triple or quadruple my money. And this one seems to be no exception to that. So that's what I'm looking at as far as those are concerned. Gold and silver and dollar.
Did you see the silver chart that I put out yesterday? Really good lesson for everybody here. What are we supposed to think if you ever see the market smiling at us? I mean, damn. I mean, that's pretty powerful stuff. So I agree with you with the loss of this low here yesterday. Now you can see they're trying. My hunch is there's probably a lot of incentive for the stock guys. You know, it'd be interesting to see what the silver $15, that's a really big psychological level. It'd be really interesting to see what the $15 SLV call and puts expiring today. The open interest, my hunch is they really did not want this thing to close down below that $15 area. But what I wanted to mention to you, which I was quite stunned at yesterday, I certainly didn't expect this, but did you see how yesterday the gold stocks just fucking lost their lunch? I mean, that, you know, massive gap lower, just violence. And if anything, you know, we've seen recently in the US dollar how it's just been chop, 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 chop. But here, I mean, I don't know. I don't think that this is a valid harmonic. The levels, I mean, it sure is pretty, but the levels aren't exactly correct here. But yeah, well, a gap and go. If we lose these lows, then look out below, eh? I was quite shocked at how violently the gold stocks and the silver stocks actually just lost their lunch first thing on the open yesterday.
I
So
think it's a
somebody
clear
must have
signal.
known something.
It's a
Sorry?
strong. I think it's a strong signal that people, traders, investors, whatever the hell they are, they understand that it's not time for gold's day in the sun, as people call it. That that may be a story for next year or the year after, but this dollar strength that we seem to be playing with is crushing gold, and I think this is leading the way. And the fact that you're showing this, I think that we've put the top in here for gold and silver. I think that, to call it a true top, at least on the underlying names, I'd like to see just gold lose that low from beginning of March at 1280. And then I think,
Then we're gonna have the market smiling at us in the gold market too, eh? Oh boy.
yeah, exactly. I think it's coming. And I think that
Those
there's
are
no,
seasonalities right now. In your business, seasonally, we were supposed to have gone through a little friendly window there, right? But has that changed now?
I mean, I think that if you look at what happened last year, we consolidated for a bit and then we came off. I think that's what we're seeing now. Same thing as
All
last
right.
year.
I think I've got it on here somewhere. Where is gold? Silver, gold. Here we are. Let's see what we got here. Do do do. Okay, so oh my goodness, look at the. Can everybody see the seasonality here? This looks bad. January, February, March, April, May, June, July. We're technically not supposed to bottom in gold until late July, early August. Can you guys see that? Holy moly. So maybe let's temper our enthusiasm in the gold industry for the time being.
I mean, just
That
use
looks
last
like
year. Use last year as an example. We rallied up January 2018 into the 1350 range. We went sideways for the better part of 4 months, and
yeah.
then we collapsed at end of
Oh
April.
wow.
And like you said, July bottoms. This didn't bottom until August, but there it
Yeah.
was. That was the bottom, and now here we are again, and we're looking heavy, just like we were last year. So
Yeah.
seasonality, at least from using last year as a template, is very much in place right now.
So be careful, metal bulls. I know poor old Dav. He one of these days he'll be vindicated on his silver call, and it'll be $5 million an ounce. But
Well, the problem with all these metal bulls is they believe that owning gold and silver is going to save them from, whatever happens in the world. And, they think that there's going to be a tax on the rich, and the rich are going to run into gold and silver because it'll be a way to avoid taxes. And I disagree with that. I think one day there's going to be like a luxury tax on holding metals or selling metals, and it's going to end up being a totally bad deal to be buying and selling gold, because why would anybody want to see that thing go up, especially government officials or governments. And sure, the wealthy own a part of their wealth in gold and silver, but it would just make sense to me where they're like, hey, we're going to institute a tax on gold and silver, because who really owns this other than the wealthy? The middle class and the lower class, are they really going to suffer that much? Sure, there's those silver stackers that have a couple $1,000s in silver or a gold bar or something, but you charge a tax, and all those, all the money that would funnel into that would have to avoid it. But I don't know. That's just my opinion. I don't think this is like the real safe haven thing to pile into, just because it's not something governments can track, and they're going to try to do everything they can to prevent it from really being the safe haven asset that it's supposed to design to be. Again, that's
right.
just
Well,
my
and it's
crazy.
interesting. A couple really interesting comments people are posting. First off, I actually agree with Adam. I do believe that, and I've actually been seeing more articles about this, more and more and more. I'm hearing that people are really believing that Bitcoin and crypto are could very easily replace the physical ownership of gold. That's not true, Adam. I agree with you lots. So anyway, he says, you agree with me? That's the first now. Anyway, the point of the matter here is I do, to a certain degree, believe that gold and silver, the purchasing power there has been sort of eroded by the evolution of crypto. I think that's a really good point Adam makes. And then also too, and I think this is fascinating, is that, countries that are sort of, and I don't know whether they're friendly or unfriendly or what the geopolitical plan is, but in essence, Russia and China and all those countries have been stockpiling gold and silver. So what's the easiest way to screw them over? Let's just knock the price of gold and silver down, and that'll just piss them off to no end. So excellent points Ruski Artem makes there, and Mr. Tim sort of validates that. And also too, we have to be cognizant of what's going to happen with China and this debt bubble. I've been hearing lots and lots of people that the inertia of this conversation is growing, that people believe that this 10-year one-way move in the Chinese economy at some point has to revert. And we might actually find that one of the ways to solve the debt problem is Chinese are actually going to be selling gold and silver to try and, pay off some of those debts. So, there's pros and cons to these countries stockpiling gold and silver. And in a weird sort of way, I tragically, quite often what ends up happening is when governments actually do something and they take it to the extreme, they often actually make really bad decisions. Like Canada, for example, got rid of all its gold in the late 90s, which was absolutely a horrible time to do that. So, and I don't know whether it was the late 90s or early 2000s, but, like Canada doesn't own any gold now. So anyway, sorry for the derailment again, but a couple of really interesting points that people are making here as you're talking about gold and silver. And I agree with you. It carries a hell of a lot of emotional baggage, those investment ideas. That's always dangerous.
Yeah. So other news before we move to crypto is this. It seems like the pound is losing its lunch here after another vote on a Brexit deal failed by just 58 votes compared to the other ones. But if you bring up a British pound chart, it looks quite toppy to me. Let's see here. We're at 1.3 against the dollar. It looks kind of like an M to me. I don't know about you, but that's
for the daily.
Yeah.
I look at that, my weekly chart here, the trend indicator did turn back up. This is kind of like the US dollar that we've been talking about for a while. When I look at the British pound, what I see is a trading range, this big old tail and a gap right in there at that 127 area. And gee whiz, on your charts, Mr. Mountain Man sitting there at 127. So I totally could see a move down into those areas. So I suppose off of sort of like a swing trader, and look at that big old tail on your chart that goes all the way down to that 124 area. Candle body lows as trade location. I think that's super sexy. And that just so happens to be that 78.6 level. So yeah, off of the dailies, I agree with you. When I look at the weeklies here, though, I really don't like the idea of shorting down in here, given this wide trading range. Ironically enough, I would actually make the argument that dips back down into reload zones are probably buying windows. So that's the way I would be looking at it. In fact, we might even, I don't know whether you can see my screen or not, but I actually like the idea. You've heard me talk about this before, reload zones within reload zones. So I'm getting overlapping reload zones here. The damn thing will cooperate. And we also have this juicy demon. Actually, there's a couple in here, right? There's a gap right at that 78.6. And there's a gap right here. It got that big old tail.
So what does that mean if we're coming down into a reload zone on the weekly? Does that mean, what kind of news can we imagine from this Brexit situation comes out to boost the pound? Is that sort of we're holding another referendum as to whether or not we want to leave? Or is it just that the politicians are like, you know what? Fuck it. Fuck the referendum. We're just going to stay here.
I got a funny feeling that if they say that, the pound will take off like a rocket. I think that, and this is, of course, purely just my opinion, I think that the latest guy who's going to take over for Theresa, I think his name is Boris. And he has a really interesting hairdo. I don't know whether you guys have seen his hairdo. It's just comical. But I could see that through that transition of Theresa May leaving and Boris coming in, that's sort of what drives this pound weakness, sort of uncertainty, what the hell's going to happen, and all that kind of stuff. Um, and if anything, like we talk about, levels, we got gaps, we got this tail that was a previous low. I for whatever it's worth, and I suppose this is the original breakout level. Yeah, I mean, look at that. I mean, there's so many. There's this one cheeky gap down in here, though, that could very easily be filled. But the way I would look at this is I would say dips down into this sort of 124 to 127 area. Me personally, I would be hunting for long setups down in here. But we'll see what happens. Only time will tell. Off of the dailies, I think you're spot on. That to me looks like a nice rolling top. And your reload zone there is jumping out at me. So, do you think you could manufacture it? Maybe if we got a counter trend rally back up against those, like if we drill down to like a daily here, like that, right? And if we got any kind of counter trend rally, and I don't know where the ultimate low here is going to be, but counter trend rallies, if you're thinking about shorting pounds or, converting to whatever currency is your favorite, I guess what I'm sort of seeing is this would be ideal short trade location for me up there. I don't know whether you agree with that or not. Oh, and look at the size of that gap. Isn't that interesting? So the futures have a big old gap on the charts, but your Forex market doesn't. So I would, if I was thinking about shorting the pound, I would definitely be watching for that gap fill. Good old mountain man. We could probably draw a nice little trend line off of the peaks here. There to there. So I would actually be looking for some sort of counter trend rally through here to short. But ultimately, so I agree with you. All the internals and stuff are saying off the dailies, maybe think down. But I actually really like the idea that if we do get down into this area, that would be a buying window. But that's just me. All right. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that? Are you taking a trade on this British pound here?
I hate Forex.
Oh, okay. And we'll leave it at that. Okay. So the bear has spoken. He hates Forex. You want to move on to crypto now? Is that the message I'm getting here?
Yeah, let's do some crypto.
All right. Hey, we haven't done the, I suppose we could do mariachis. What the hell? Or do we want to listen to Jamie? Let's listen to Jamie today. Jamie, where are you, Jamie?
Bitcoin, tastes great. Bitcoin.
All right, sir. Fire away.
All right, let's hustle through the news. These are more headline stories than they are content stories. Jihan Wu here is, up to his old bag of tricks, talking about, issues with decentralization. He's talking about Ethereum here and how ASICs, I mean, God forbid he says anything bad about them, considering his company runs a shitload of them, that ASICs are good for Ethereum because they make it more decentralized. And he makes a compelling argument about proof of work versus proof of stake. And basically he says if Ethereum moves from proof of work to proof of stake, that it won't solve the current problem with Ethereum centralization, and that realistically they need to have better dissemination of these tokens across a wider variety of participants. And the way it stands right now, this network is at risk for 51% attacks, whatever the hell it may be. Then he goes on and talks about underlying architecture. But I mean, here we go again with this talk about 51% attacks. I know you love that, Brian, so I thought that was good to bring up. But Jihan Wu is still I feel like he's in limbo. I don't know if he really wants to be at Bitmain, if he's trying to start up his own fund. Like, what's his political motivations here? What's he really trying to accomplish by all this talk? Because I think that his current position at Bitmain is in trouble after their IPO, and they lost all this money from what happened with Bitcoin Cash and, you know, Roger Ver and his yip yap mouth. But
It
this
was
kind of
also
speaks.
Dr. What's his face, right?
Right, Craig Banana Head.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is Mr. Banana Head said that he was going to drive all of the altcoins into the ground, and the exact opposite is happening, eh?
Well, it turns
So
out he's
I'm
not
not quite
the only
sure.
one.
We haven't really heard too much out of Mr. Banana Head lately.
Yeah, now, well, there's a new banana head in town that's coming out, and this banana head is behind EOS. His name is Dan Larimer. This is him. I won't comment about that, but anyway, this is the EOS guy, and he's got issues with decentralization. And basically, he's come out and said, I could take out Bitcoin and Ethereum if I wanted to. I hate when shit like this comes out. It's just so frustrating to hear, you know, guys that are running these big name chains with big market caps talking about attacking other names. I don't know if this means anything, but people are getting frustrated for whatever reason. Again, talk of decentralization is seeming to rear its ugly head, and people want to protect what's being created and what's growing in the space. And I guess the bigger names and the principal owners of these chains are realizing that, you know, maybe we're encountering the same problem that we encountered with the money supply we currently have in place, that there are these big fat cats that own a big majority of it. And there's no exception to that in crypto, and that true decentralization may not actually be achievable in the current form that we're moving these chains towards. So, I mean, if they're seeing it and they're worried about it, maybe we should really be thinking about it too. Because things aren't truly decentralized. What do we really have? What are we really owning if, you know, a couple groups decide to collaborate and fuck over the entire blockchain of whatever coin they want to? So I think we need to sort of keep that in the back of our minds, and the fact
Well, you know, I said this all through the correction. Ironically enough, we won't actually know when the bottom is close until we actually start having these conversations about 51% attacks and egotistical. You know, what's the old adage? Those who the gods wish to destroy first make drunk with power. So actually this kind of talk and, you know, my dick's bigger than your dick, that kind of stuff. That's actually a great hallmark of, okay, prices have gotten low enough that, you know, the public is gone and it's just these egomaniacs who are running around, you know, saber rattling. Time to start moving price back up again. I remember specifically the last Bitcoin bottom. It literally bottomed as soon as people started talking about, oh, I could take over the network and I could drive you all into the ground, blah, blah, blah. And literally at that point, price just starts heading straight up. And that's the easiest way to put all that kind of conversation to bed, eh? So, yeah, good point, sir. Good point. Oh boy, here's the Canadian.
Yeah, so evidently they said that if Brian Beamish wants to pay his property taxes, he's allowed to send them Bitcoin.
Well, it's fascinating because here locally in Vancouver, they just passed a law that if you don't actually live in your home, they're going to hit you with a new property tax, like vacancy home tax or something like that. So it'd be hilarious if a lot of these Chinese foreign owners all started trying to pay their taxes in Bitcoin. Oh, goodness. All right. Yeah. So, and where is that? Is that what municipality? Is that back east or where's that?
What's your address? Your address is what? Because I'm pretty sure it's just for your, no, it's this town called.
No, that's in Ontario.
So yeah. It's not a big thing. Yeah.
I never even heard of Innisville. I don't even know where the hell that is. So is it a Toronto-based Coinberry? I think that's great. I thought it was interesting in Canada. They're actually talking about outlawing shorting cryptocurrency. I mean, that's one way to create a rise-only market, eh? You're legally not allowed to short cryptocurrencies.
You know, that might happen once all the guys have their money in place and they own enough crypto.
in Canada, it's called Bay Street. That's sort of our financial district. And I noticed that, like Novogratz, isn't he Canadian? I don't know. I can't remember if he's not or not, if he is or not. But I noticed his little stock just keeps churning higher here. So maybe he's got all of Bay Street loaded up in his stock. And as a result, they've put into place a rise-only market. Oh, that would be hilarious. All right, sorry. Keep interrupting. Tax payments in BTC. Trend reaches Canada. All right.
Yeah, so that's pretty much the scuttlebutt, as I think you would say, on that. Let's move on to this Coinbase article about Tezos staking. This has been surging ever since beginning of January. This thing's up like 90 some odd percent before the recent pump here. This thing's up 12% after Coinbase's announcement. I don't own any of this. It is interesting.
Somebody on Twitter was saying that Coinbase has not made any reference to this yet or not.
Okay, well, they've come out and said Coinbase Custody's official website says they're allowing you to stake it. So that means, you hold it in cold storage and they're going to pay you out for this thing. I mean, I don't do any of this, so I'm no expert in this, but it is interesting that, again, the Coinbase pump here came in, at least for this name. I don't know if that's insider work or what, but it's up 12%. I think this thing's probably a little too high to be considering doing anything, but this is just one name here amongst many where these altcoins seem to be catching news articles about anything from stable coins to staking events. It almost seems like people are trying to extract money from markets where they can after we've kind of been going sideways in the broader markets. But altcoin markets are popping off one at a time. And like you've said, stock pickers market or altcoin pickers market, looks like this was one of those. So yeah. I don't know if anyone's participating in the custody product, but it might be worth just playing around. I may just send something there just to see what it's like. But it is another Coinbase product they're trying to bring to the masses.
Speaking of stock pickers market, Stan the man, if you're watching this later on, your Orestone's taken off here. Arrgh! Totally missed this trade. But Stan was part of our RSP group. I just wanted to mention that. Anybody who picked up this Orestone, they're kicking butt right now. And, I got to agree. This is totally a coin pickers market. I was so pleased to see, and I even tweeted it out, there are people on the site that have gotten off like 20, 30 doubles here just since January. So, you can be a Bitcoin maximalist if you want, but holy crap, there is a lot of money to be made here in this altcoin market. And I'm speaking specifically about you, Andrew. Congratulations. Excellent trading. Nice job. Basically, Andrew bought the punch. He fully committed to his plan. He went in there and loaded up when they were basically giving this stuff away, and now he's being rewarded. So congratulations, sir. Where's my Tesla? Oh, and actually it was interesting. I saw a tweet yesterday. Somebody was tried to call Tesla for customer service. And the answering machine just was in an endless loop. It never got to customer service, which I thought was hilarious. So what's your take on Tesla here?
Well, this is just some article about Justin Sun's Tron and how he ran this competition where a whole bunch of people would win some money and one lucky winner would win a Tesla.
Yeah, I remember that. He was giving away a Tesla. I remember all that.
Well, nobody's won anything. Nobody's gotten paid out anything, and nobody's gotten a Tesla. And he won't acknowledge any of the winners, and they are getting some flack here because the Twitter user they picked might have been a bot, and he's just getting a lot of shit for this. So I don't know if anyone in our community played this, but if you're a winner and you got paid out, I guess we'd like to hear about it, but I don't know who got picked here. But it's like kind of a dirty stain on the name of Tron, and lots of people have over the last couple of years just called this whole thing a scam. And who knows, maybe they just don't know how to run a contest. But I thought it was funny for the Tesla fanboys in the community. So that's
Yeah,
the
well,
new.
and it's interesting because I like to. I'm a cheap ass, so I have noticed that Tesla's been moving up. If I'm not mistaken, they have a really big production quota that they're supposed to meet here, and I think that's one of the reasons why you can't get through to customer service and stuff because they're all freaking about can they actually meet the production quota. But I have noticed that Tesla bounced nicely off this gap on my charts here. I don't know whether you can see that. We're sort of off topic, not really talking crypto. But I did notice that my cheap ass way, because, $300 a share, that's pretty damn expensive. But my cheap ass proxy in that space is looking better and better. We already got a free position on this thing, so I don't really need to trade it. But you notice that the cheap ass way to play this market is trying to bottom here, and we might be getting ready for another leg higher here on good old Blink. So we'll see how that goes. I just found it amusing that that people were trying to actually contact Tesla for customer service and they just couldn't get anybody. So we'll see what happens. But this is sort of. And, sadly, in crypto, right, this is sort of like, are these people lying? And is that guy a Tron guy? Is that what all that was about? So maybe that's because if I'm not mistaken, I think Tron was like one of the first in our list of coins that we were following on our trend indicator to actually start pointing back up. It's interesting, EOS. I don't know whether you guys are following EOS, but it's now starting to try and leave the moving averages here. So we might get a bullish cross here on EOS. And I've been hearing a lot of people chattering about EOS lately, so keep an eye on him. All right. So you're looking at EOS been ramping up like crazy on Max. Yeah. So Andrew's seeing that too. So. All right, so let's listen to what Thomas sees in his price charts. What's on your mind here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the longs and shorts here on Litecoin, and it looks like shorts are coming off a lot over the last couple of days, which is ironic because it seems like this market's, looks toppy compared to what we're seeing out of the Bitcoin market. Bitcoin enjoyed a nice rally last night and the last couple of days, and I don't know, are we seeing that same action here out of Litecoin? Not so much. Litecoin's not really buying it just yet, and the shorts have come off here and the longs have sort of remained steady. I don't like what I'm seeing out of this. We've got a confirmed bear div here, but the only thing that we're missing is a solid market structure top. We kind of got one here, but no follow through. So, I mean, I need to take direction from sort of, I guess Brian likes to draw battle lines, and this sure looks like we've got a couple of battle lines to deal with here on Litecoin. It's $57 to the downside, 63 and a quarter to the upside, and we're caught in this range here. And any break above or below this will probably be the trend that this thing will take. But if you look at Willie, I think he needs some recharging before this thing wants to ramp up anymore. Is the Bitcoin and Ethereum markets ready to decouple from this Litecoin market? I don't know. I'm wondering if Litecoin's just ahead of the game here, and Bitcoin needed to rally just a bit more before something happens to that. But I mean, as far as daily charts are concerned on Bitcoin, there's no doubt about it. We've broken out from last week's kind of scary area where it looks like we could break down the 3,700. We never really got that follow through in the sell-offs. MACD is looking a lot more washy, which to me indicates that, hey, maybe we're not so excited on the downside, that maybe some more upside is in for this market. But I mean, as far as what I'd be looking at, it's interesting. I think you probably have a bot level on this. I'm just eyeballing what happened here from there to there, clone this line, and you kind of, you take this thing and put it from the last low where we bounced off of a Mountain Man area, and that points us up to roughly 4,500. Lo and behold, that almost looks like a 200 period moving average tag, a 38.2 test, maybe just a bit above it. Do we have 3 solid lows to work with? on the
You
daily.
can see, I happen to have the Phoenix 4-hour, and I've had these charts on for a while, and I find this fascinating because, God, this is this is the difference between trading with opinion. I think the market's going to go up. I think the market's going to go down, and just simply trading setup levels. And you're right. You know, basically, we had a 1 low, 2 lows, 3 lows, 4 lows, lots of lows to work with. 39.80 here on Phoenix 4-hour. And what's fascinating is they ran up. We've been waiting for the move stop to break even level to be hit 41.99, basically $4,200. And today's high overnight was 41.9720. Oh, you got a rumba. Probably if we do it up on OKCoin, you probably see similar levels. Might have even hit the move stop to break even on your chart with an ultimate target of 46.38 up top there. Eh? And, you know, before we leave Litecoin in earnest, I found it fascinating the other day how we had this funny, you know, sort of pivot off of its bot level, move stop to break even level hit. You see that number 57.83, and you know, to all intents and purposes, this thing was pointing down. But we come down, and for some silly reason, we pivoted off of 58.03. So basically about 20 cents off of that pivot, and then boom, right back up top. So ironically enough, for the 4 hours, nothing has really changed here. And same thing on Ethereum and own pollution. If you're ever out there, or if you are out there, hopefully now you're realizing that, you know, put your opinions away and just simply trade your setups. Yeah, we had the bot level fire, and in this particular case, you had to take a whole bunch of heat. But, you know, Thomas, big hats off to you. And I even tweeted it out. I was very impressed and very proud that you popped into the lounge and you were like, hey, everybody, 4-hour Ethereum is turning here. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how, you know, you talk about your trade off of that. But sure enough, here we are right back at the bot entry level. So nothing's really changed here. I mean, that's the irony of all of this. So anyway, you said the word bot, and that got Brian all excited there. Sorry.
You got like bot excitement levels. Yeah, thanks for the shout out on Ethereum. I remember leaving the DB on Tuesday, kind of with the short position on, and I had some stops set. And really what happened into that market on Tuesday was just this lack of real follow through. What happened was we tagged sort of ABCD levels on a short that was in the, I don't know, was that Monday or whatever it was? And that was really the end of the move, but it still looked inherently weak off the bounce from 50% level. But we never really got a, again, follow through below 131. And once the market closed, the thing started ramping up, put in a W at 5 o'clock on Tuesday. And that was your signal. You got this nice little W here, and boom, away she went. And it was quite a quick move. And then, you know, stalled out at 78.6, but then the next move just blew through this range here. And yeah, I had a nice, you know, this is the thing about trading. And, you know, if you have an opinion and you can't have the elasticity to leave that opinion behind when you're wrong, you're gonna get fucked. And this was an example of, okay, I was wrong. This isn't a market that's gonna continue going down. It's time to abandon ship and move to the other side here. And this was the setup, right? You had your market structure come in. There was no follow through. You had the ABCD completions. That was the market saying, hey, I'm done. I'm exhausted here. That was your buying opportunity. And it gave you a second shot down here. Look at this empire that fired here. You got your first signal on this, came back down, put in this kind of like, you know, came all the way down, put in that neckline for the W. And that was your signal. It's like, okay, now I've got two signals here that this isn't, arguably three. The fact that we didn't make this new low. And I was just like, you know what, I got to get out of this position and think about hunting longs. And I was able to go long, but my target was in the 136 area. I took off my position, got about a 40% profit from that at 20x leverage. And this thing just kept going up, but that's fine, right? I still made money. I escaped from my short position without taking too big of a loss. And, you know, I'm happy to get back in on a different position, right? I'm in and out. I don't care what the market does up or down as long as I can catch the move. And that's kind of what happened here. So as far as what's going on right now, it looked like last night, you know, sideways consolidation. I trapped a whole bunch of bears on this move down here. And then sure enough, same looking W came in as it did before and another move up. Now, the interesting thing is that this is Friday. And I know that I've commented before that moves on weekends don't seem to be coming true or coming through as they did over the last 4 sessions of weekend trading. Last session bucked that trend. And the 4 sessions prior to it, we continued to move through the weekend. But I'm wondering if we don't get that move again this weekend, or maybe we do. But I'm not trading this just yet because I don't see a clear indication other than higher time frames seem to be pointing upward, and I'm not holding a higher time frame position. Maybe if you look at the 4-hour here, we need to come back down and retest the neckline of that W right here. That's a little bit above 38.2, so maybe this thing just kind of stalls out. The other problem potentially brewing on the 4 hours, potential bear div, but I think it's still early. I think ABCDs on the 4-hour might be a good idea to try to play on Ethereum here. I don't know where that leads us, but interesting market. I mean, it certainly feels bottomy. It feels like it's trying to reestablish itself before kind of nosediving and crapping out again, but until that happens, you can't get too excited on the bear side until you see some clear signals happening. I mean, 4-hour is approaching overbought, but maybe one more test above into the 146 area. That might be what we're looking at. But that's kind of my view, and weekend trading is crazy, so be careful. I'd be very much concerned about shorting this too early on. Just keep that in mind. And then a daily chart on Ethereum just looks very bottomy, very much like it's trying to escape from this 144 high. But that may trap a bunch of bulls. Yeah, it may trap a bunch of bulls if we do tag that 146 area. Kind of like that prairie dog setup we were talking about on the Dow and the S&P. I'm wondering if this is one of those examples where this thing pops back up and then it says, nah, a little too early, got to set it up for London kill zones next week to really ramp up the bull market.
Yeah, well, in the face of that Willie and the face of that OBV,
yeah, I was just about to say, those things look like they still have room to run, so be careful.
You know, and maybe that's the weekend frivolity. You know, it'd be interesting to do a fib off of those lows back up against that original high. You know, like the bot, it will have its move stop to break even at 159 here on Phoenix. And you notice that 159, this is, I've talked to you guys about this before, right? This is so classic Top Step Trader, Brian and Mountain Man sitting in the pits trading crude, where you can literally see exactly where Mountain Man is going to think about shorting and where Brian, of course, would be going along. And we'd just be sitting in there in the lounge, right? And this would be the battle zone. And in this particular case, I'd need to move all the way up to this 159 area to move my stop to scratch. But I could very easily see a battle up in this area here. And if anything, maybe, you know, off of your hourly charts I just threw on that AB equals CD, that will take us to the top of value. Maybe tag Mountain Man. You can see there just isn't a heck of a lot of interest in doing business up top here. So, and also to China Tim, this is a shout out to you. This trend channel, you notice the midpoint of the trend channel is going to be in that area too, top of value, Mountain Man. My hunch is the next sort of significant pivot for Ethereum is going to be sort of up in this sort of one. And really that makes sense too. Big fat round number, $150. You know, and especially with your indicators looking as uppy as they are, I'm sort of feeling like we could have some sort of push through the weekend up into this area here. And also, too, I noticed 420 is coming. The pot stocks or pot coins are all starting to come alive. You know, ironically enough, the pot stocks are kind of out of favor. But I see these pot coins just look fantastic. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a big old sort of marijuana led rally, pot coin, beg your pardon, rally, which, might, this could easily go on for another couple weeks here in this space. Oh, anyway, so that's Ethereum. You talked about Litecoin. Do you want to give us your 2 cents on Bitcoin? Or not? You are muted, so I don't know whether you realize that.
I think we went over that. No?
Okay. Did we talk Bitcoin? I can't remember. So, all right, that's good. It's well past the top of the hour, so I think these people got some good value for their time spent here today. Is there anything else you want to impart onto the community before we head off into the sunset?
Yeah, just remember what I talk about is very low time frame. I'm looking for moves kind of intraday or for the weekend. So I talk about pullbacks on Ethereum. Remember, that's not a trend, at least from what I was discussing on the lower time frames. So keep that in mind. And other than that, maybe if you don't have anything to do over the weekend, you want to get your toes wet and get a little wet and wild in the weekend frivolity trading of these forwards markets. Maybe, it's not a bad idea with the upcoming volatility that we could see heading into weekend trading. I almost always see like Friday, New York close, something happens. So I think 4 to 5 o'clock Eastern time, something's going to move this market, whether it's up or down. It might be interesting to watch, but if you're not interested in those markets, but you are interested in kind of higher time frames and positioning yourselves, it might not be a bad idea just to watch and understand how these things work so you can get yourself nice fills for the higher time frame moves. So enjoy the weekend and don't get too crazy trading it because all bets are off when it comes to the weekend. But enjoy, and I'll be back next week.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, sir. Totally appreciate the sound words of wisdom. I had sort of made reference earlier about the pot coins coming alive here. Here's a good example. And the interesting thing, guys, is, Colleen, my guinea pig, do you understand why now I was kept talking about these? 420 is coming, 420 is coming. Can you see this? I mean, this is what you have to learn out of this education program. So long and short of it here, pot coins are enjoying a really nice rally. I don't know whether it really makes any sense to chase any of these names now. They've kind of gone a little bit away from us. If you did participate, make sure to have your sell have on doubles orders working and all that kind of fun stuff. Sam actually asked a question over on YouTube. Hi, any point in putting stop loss once you have a free position after banging out doubles, or just let it ride high or low since it's free? If you had done a trade like this, keep in mind this space is so volatile. You could very easily see the market come right back down to the bottom end of the range. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. And this is probably a commentary on sort of our second car, third car, fourth car kind of idea. I mean, I don't know whether everybody can see this or not, but you can see we have a nice juicy little gap that just so happens to correspond with 78.6, and that happens to be actually the launch pad for this rally. So if I was playing this and I had gotten my original capital back, I would leave the free position alone. Those are free coins. Basically, you own them. Your cost, your risk basis on them is zero. And I would actually look to try and take my original capital and go and just rebuy the position, or what we call a second car, third car, fourth car, and keep adding to the trade. So that's the way I would approach it, Sam. I'm not really a big fan of stop loss orders on crypto because, you may find that your stop loss, and, actually Andrew and Rez are working on a program on we're actually going to teach on the site how to operate those automated trading programs. I don't know whether you would actually get a half decent fill if you had a stop loss order at a certain level, or, maybe your stop loss is tripped here, but the next bid on the order book is down here, so you end up getting stopped out down here. Keep in mind, altcoins are extremely illiquid. They're extremely manipulated. It's high anxiety, quote unquote, trading. So for me, I don't think I would actually recommend, and really I'm not supposed to make any recommendations at all. I just simply tell you what I do. For me, I wouldn't do stop losses on this kind of trade. I would, I've got my free position. I got my original money back. The question is, would I want to go and add another car to this trade and work my bid to go and buy the original position back down below? So hopefully that helps you, Sam. I did see your question there a few minutes ago, and I wanted to try and speak to that. This is just yet another example. Like I said, guys like Andrew, Adam, of course, Adam's just a monster trader, banging out doubles right, left, and center. And if you want to follow these guys as good role models in the lounge, I think they're basically doing everything that we teach on the site to perfection. I mean, these guys, they're really doing really well. And it just speaks to the fact that, we've taught people how to do this correctly. And if you can focus on executing your plan, then get in there and have some fun. If I was going to be putting new money to work, I really want us to try and avoid thinking about buying these up markets. Who buys up markets? Somebody buys up markets, but it's not the professionals. I can tell you that. And, at any given point in time, gee whiz, this goddamn Telegram, I gotta just close it. Just keeps sending messages, driving me crazy here. Go away. Look at this mess. God damn it. How do I close that? Will that actually close it? So frustrating. Just keep going through your list, right? And just looking for the names. Like I happen to have a bunch of names that I'm interested to try and buy. And, you guys see on a regular basis. I've got stink bids working. Question is, where the hell's the damn screen? And I think that there's good money to be made, but you got to go shop where the public isn't interested. You could always, consider joining me on this guy. Oh, it's still there. Go away. Fuck, God damn it. Stupid thing. Anyway, maybe that's a note that I've talked too much here. This HAXRO is just sitting here banging around in the reload zone. Those are the kind of names that if I had new money to go and spend in this market, I would seriously consider. And then the last thing that I just wanted to mention was somebody had asked about RVN and whether they should consider going and buying. And I'm just going to have to reiterate what I said before. If you come to RVN and you're thinking, okay, well, this is going to help me pay off my mortgage. It just keeps going up. And wow, what a great idea. I would have to say, look at, is this the kind of name where we want to think about going and putting on a new position? And, you have to look at this chart and go, holy crap, there is a world of risk here. Maybe it goes higher, but remember, we always have to judge. Geez, that damn thing just won't go away. Whenever we put new money to work in the market, we always have to ask ourselves, okay, well, if I put money in to work in the market, what's the risk? And in this particular case, holy geez, there is a world of risk here. So you're coming late to the party if you think about buying one of these. What I want you to get into the habit is hunting for this kind of scenario where we're right back down against the bottom end of the range and the W's start coming in. And now your risk window is relatively limited. Going and buying an asset up top here, your risk window is actually extremely high. So be careful, okay, guys? Try not to chase up markets. It's extremely dangerous. Okay, I do have a class I'm supposed to go teach here in about a half an hour. So no, well, I didn't say sell. This is why I really like the idea of sell half on a double and to get yourself into a risk-free trade. Frankly speaking, I don't know where the hell this thing's going to go. But if I bought down in reload zones, I should be on a free position now. Even if I bought this bot setup, actually I should be out and have taken profits. And at this point here, I should have absolutely no risk in owning any assets. No risk at all. If I go and put on a new position here, then that means I've got 100% risk. And if this thing craps out, I'm toast. And it's always just a question of what is my relative risk. So I'm going to leave the conversation at that. Like I said, I got to go teach a class. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention for those people that are interested in the stock market, had a really cool little trade that we were hunting in our TRI-SOF meetings. And I went and pulled the trigger yesterday. I'd just like to tell you guys if I'm going to do a trade. This is a good example of Leanne James setup. We draw a trend line off of these peaks. 1, 2, 3, 4 tests of that trend line. And the rule is if we break the trend line, the trade is the first market structure following the breakout. And I think we got a W that just came in here. Down, up, down. Of course, really nice location right against this reload zone. 78.6. And what I really like about this trade, you know, the fundamentals, good old Brian and his rational analysis. These guys have a new product that major retailer is going to promote and make part of their sort of business plan. And so I just simply went and bought this W. And I mean, you could just go buy the stock. It's fine. But I actually am trading this through options. I bought the January 2020 $12.50 calls, which is basically this line here, for $1.25. And if this, and you know, good looking internals, nice bull div, really stupid, W's coming in, everything there looks good. And if I get just a nice simple 50% retracement, then my options are worth better part of $4. So I think that this is a trade that's right in my wheelhouse. I apologize. This damn stupid Telegram thing just keeps going off here. But you know, I just wanted to leave you off with this is a trade that I actually just did. You're welcome to join me if you want. It's entirely up to you. You know, if not, I'm not going to be insulted if you're not interested. But I always like to make sure you guys know exactly what I'm doing. So, okay, why don't we leave the daily brief at that, Mr. Habsburg? What do you think? Do we do a half decent job here today?
Yes, sir. Guess just to remind the good people in Europe and Asia that we have a time change on Sunday, so we'll be back on normal daily brief time on Monday.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you very much for that update. That's pretty smart. Thank you. So Europeans, you will be changing your clocks, and so be aware that Monday the time's going to be slightly different for you. Okay, why don't we leave it at that? Have yourselves a great idea. Thank you so much, Thomas. Great job as always. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Colleen, for being my willing guinea pig. Thank you, Riza and Andrew, for kicking butt and being great role models. And can't wait to see your course offering. And of course, Marat, great contributions in the lounge. Excellent work. And of course, Alex, kicking ass as always. Actually, Alex squared. Alex R for being the bus driver here and keeping us on schedule. And Alex B for doing our daily brief write-ups. So have yourselves a great day, everybody. I'll see all automated level tours in about a half an hour. All the best, and bye for now.